More on the DOJ's action against Apple with the MacVoices Live panel. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter that keeps you up with everything MacVoices is doing. From our published episodes to Chuck's other appearances to special events and more, subscribe at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay fully informed so you don't miss a thing. Webb, even though the dog ate your homework, I know you have thoughts.
We try really hard not to get political on the show, and I'm not going to, but I do see this as really nothing more than very much driven as a political statement. I think that there's some catch up going on between what's going on with the EU and I think the Justice Department wants to get their licks in. So I'm a little concerned about that. I do think it's very, very politically motivated, and I think one of the things that's going to happen, mark my word, that all the class action attorneys are going to be piling on with their own class action lawsuits to go on with this too. And it's going to tie up Apple for a long time, and it's going to cost them millions, if not billions of dollars just to defend this thing. It's, and I don't want to come off as an Apple fanboy, but I am not offended by the App Store. I think that there's a certain level of security that it gives me as a consumer to know that the apps that I purchase at the App Store are vetted. I don't think that the 30% commission, if you want to use that word, is excessive, because not only is it just the profit that Apple makes, they're allowed to make a profit, but they're also paying for an awful lot of infrastructure around the world to make this type of system available. I think it's silly. Okay, that's a bold statement. I'm sure that there's some aspects that I might agree with within the pleading itself, but for the most part, like I said, I just think it's politics. Ben, you were talking about you get a couple of Congress people to on both sides of the aisle to put their name on it. I would agree with you, except for one thing. When you're in Congress, you're only worried about doing one thing in Congress, and that's getting reelected. Those are 2-year cycles. And while you can take someone, it's some congressman that's been there for a long time, you got to get, if you get to the part of making but it's not a motion, it's a bill. You got to get 55% of the rest of the Congress to agree with you. I think that's kind of tough to do. So anyway,
6
it's a 2-year cycle.
To me, an odd thing is, how is this a political benefit? It seems like the biggest benefit goes to Google and Facebook. Their competitor is going to be crippled and tied up, and maybe, and the interesting thing is, now I think we could have a completely different discussion, Webb, about for example, the 30%, and
sure, absolutely.
I think that's and there's all kinds of arguments that I think could be made about things where Apple is definitely abusing their position. But
I don't disagree with that.
But this lawsuit doesn't make any of those.
Right, I agree.
It's more like a swing and a miss. Maybe this is a distraction that it's like, oh, we want Apple to get off, so we'll have this whiff, and then at the real problems will not be addressed. I don't know. It's just very weird.
I want to welcome Jeff Gamet to the show. Fashionably late again, but I'm still darn glad he's here. Jeff, good to have you.
It's great to be here, and clearly I'm working on my fashion.
Yes. I'm sure that Jeff was being deposed as part of this lawsuit that we're discussing.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Jeff, we've been hammering away at the DOJ action, and I'm not going to draw any conclusions. I'm just going to let that stand as it is. Any thoughts that you have that really jumped out at you from this?
I am probably about to rehash things that everyone else has already said. It concerns me that the scope of definition for monopoly in this case was very specifically crafted. So what I mean is they created the category of premium smartphone and said Apple has monopoly.
Performance spot phone.
Excuse me. Thank you. Yes. Performance spot phone. Wow. Performance smartphone. Yeah. Oh man. Anyhow, that bothers me. The fact that they claim that Apple is doing things that are unique just to Apple and they're not standard industry practices, like the whole digital wallet thing that's in there. Some of the examples that they've included to show how Apple is being so horrible in all of this, are just when you just going down the whole filing, it's like a laundry list of what were you thinking, or even possibly what were you smoking, to come up with these various arguments. So I hopped in at just the right time, Jim, to hear something that you said, which is that maybe this is all like, I'm totally paraphrasing you here, like maybe this is a tactic for something else. And if that's the case, then everyone involved in this needs to be removed from their job and to be sanctioned or charged with whatever appropriate law applies, because you cannot use law or the legal system to perform some other action. You need to show up with a legit case. So as the government, your job is to show up with a case that you feel you can win, not show up to do some sort of grandstanding thing or political maneuvering. Jim, I can see right through that thought in your head right now. So what I'm hoping is that the DOJ thinks that they actually do have a legit case here. Because if they're showing up with other motives, then they're doing a disservice to all of us taxpayers. They're doing a disservice to consumers. They're doing a disservice to the industry. And ultimately, they will erode the credibility that seems to be dissolving very quickly for faith and trust in all aspects of government in the United States. How's that for summarizing?
Nice.
That's very, very good.
I can throw in a thought. I'm surprised anybody hasn't really mentioned about the whole with the old Microsoft case back in 1998. The article caught my eye. One of the comments he made was talking about, Microsoft had to be crushed in the early aughs with it in order for Apple to thrive, and now Apple must be crushed in order to bring forth the next era of tech. Well, Microsoft had to be crushed because of the browser wars. They were 90% of the domination market. Has Apple dominated that much in the market? I don't think so.
No, they have not.
And that's what's crazy about this. And even the harping on super apps was talked about in the lawsuit. What super apps? I mean, why is there a big complaint about trying to get, other than the fact that I might be trying to get attention with this? And it's going to be an ongoing, long battle. I mean, the Microsoft case was what, 20 years? I think it was. I mean,
this is going to go that long, but
maybe 10 years. I mean, probably at least 10 years. It was at least 10 years. So, so why this is going to be the same? And then, like many of you said, was this is going to cost Apple billions of dollars and legal fees and trying to defend this, and it's going to go nowhere.
Cletus in the chat room says that Apple just improves on what's out there, and he thinks it's election time, and this is a power play and re-election banner. And
what's it going to get them?
But I don't understand. How is this? The administration not want Apple people in the Apple community to vote for them? It seems like a really weird. What's the benefit? How where's the political benefit? I mean, it seems like they must be politically motivated, but it's so unclear. Usually, at least, things that are political, you can see, understand, like, okay, this is, insincere and whatever, but I can see that, what this gets you. And in this case, I just don't understand. And maybe it's some out of control people in DOJ that, just went off the reservation. But then that's a problem too.
That would be a problem.
From
the idea that we have a lawsuit against Apple that distilled down, very simplified, is saying, look, we want to have competition in the United States because capitalism. But we want you to run your business the exact same way as everyone else. Where do you get competition when you have to do the exact same thing as every other company that's putting out similar competing products?
And it's not just the DOJ either. It's a whole bunch of states. So, this was all
16
coordinated.
States.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, that took a bunch of, it's interesting that none of this leaked.
Well, but isn't it interesting that those 16 states that joined in are all blue states?
Mm-hmm. Are they? Yeah, that is really weird.
Yep.
Is DC included? Because DC was part of that.
DC was,
DC's
17
blue.
So it's a blue region. It's a blue county.
Blue.
Well, okay. Here's a totally off the cuff hypothesis. The blue states tend to be higher income states, which tend to be the states where you would then have a potentially higher percentage of Apple product users because of disposable income. Totally pulling that one out of my butt right there, but maybe that's part of it.
I think it's probably more that the blue states tend to have, muckraker, go after business, Justice departments.
I'm not sure I go with muckraker, but I will say that
well, maybe that's the word because that's journalism, but legal, trust buster.
Yeah, I mean the articles I've read are that the political benefit would be that they're cracking down on quote unquote big tech, which they've done a pretty good job of building up as one of the enemies of something. Now, seems kind of strange to attack that when they want job creation, and how many of these big tech companies are huge employers. So
California is one of the states, and Apple is tons of jobs in California. Bizarre.
Yes. So you just look at this and think this is weird. So
I saw that it's not ruled out that they would ask for Apple to be broken up.
That'll never happen.
I didn't say it would never ever happen, but somebody was asked, in the DOJ, and they said we're not ruling that out.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, honestly, with this type of lawsuits, you always start with the maximum.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So the chat room has come alive. Brett says Apple may not be dominant in market share, but they're very dominant in smartphone revenue, and that has stalled any competitive pressure on the App Store. Sequita says tech firms can support them to make problems go away first. Let's see. Brett also says Apple feels no pressure to budge from the 730 split because no other app marketplace is competitive with theirs. Which I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Apple definitely has a monopoly on the phone app market. I don't know that it's legal a monopoly that's actionable.
Yeah, because
But
I mean,
if you're a developer, you and developers are all terrified of Apple. They all dance around, and I mean, a lot of this you don't hear about because we can't offend Apple because they could cut us off, and they capriciously do. There was just a couple stories today about some capricious App Store rejections. So, but this lawsuit doesn't address any of that, and I'm not sure that it could. I'm not sure that, even though I'm saying that Apple is got a monopoly position, I'm not sure it's a legal monopoly that would meet the definition of the Sherman law, which is historically been a very difficult law to use, even going back 100 years. And I read a few years ago, I read a biography of Teddy Roosevelt, and same issues that he was railing about 120 years ago. Nothing's changed.
Webb?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, Apple does have carries a 50-pound mallet around it, and they swing it every once in a while. I don't deny that, but I think there are other platforms that do the same thing. You upset Facebook, you're going to get banned. You upset YouTube, you're going to get banned. I think that there's always been that fear of the platform that everybody has to play nice.
I totally agree with that, and I think there could be a world, and maybe the EU is going to go there, where these platforms are, like right now they're judge, jury, executioner. There's no, YouTube's perfect example. You can build up a YouTube business and it's gone tomorrow.
Eric couldn't be here with us tonight, but he's in the chat room, and his comment is, someone is using a formula of large companies are a problem. They forgot to ask why and see if that applies to this case. I think that's
there's something to that.
Summary, yes.
Well, I think from a politician's point of view, large companies are a problem just because they challenge, government, period. They operate outside of, governments are jealous of their power.
I agree with that. I agree. Jeff?
Oh, sorry. So, okay, here's the funny thing. When you called my name, it took a few seconds for the synapses to fire to realize you're referencing what I just wrote in our private chat, which is, where's the DOJ lawsuit forcing Google to open its search ranking algorithm? They pretty much have a monopoly on web searches, and they are not giving that up.
Maybe that's coming next month.
I've been holding this one in reserve for a while, but how about a suit against Microsoft for monopolizing the spreadsheet market, which is an incredibly a tool that the business world is incredibly reliant on, along with a lot of other different aspects of our society. And yet the closest thing it has to competition is Apple's numbers and Google's sheet. Can anybody name another spreadsheet?
You just named two. Google
I
Sheets, huge.
Oh, come on, Jim. You really how many companies do you believe are running on Google Sheets?
A lot.
Tons of them.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. I have a feeling we would be shocked to find out how high the number actually is.
Okay, maybe
even those of us that know there are tons of companies using Google services like that.
I will stand corrected because I don't know of anyone that is in any organization of any size that uses Google Sheets for their confidential, serious spreadsheets. I mean, schedules for the lunch menus, sure, but and taking nothing away from Sheets, but I don't know anyone, so that's me, and maybe I'm just out of touch.
Okay, so here's some information. Google. This is from Microsoft Copilot. Google Sheets has a significant user base with more than 900 million people using it each month. This impressive number surpasses Microsoft Excel, which has approximately 700 million users. And it cites a place, in the productivity software market, two main players dominate, Google and App have combined 96% share.
And that's from Microsoft's AI.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's it's sort of, it has some links here of where it got the information. Some.
Now, if I was
doesn't cost anything.
If I was Microsoft's AI, I would craft that very response to protect Microsoft. Then I would generate the links to the articles that I just created to back up what I'm saying.
Are you hallucinating, Jeff, or is the AI hallucinating?
Hey, I live in Colorado. It's possible for me to hallucinate at any given moment.
Okay, so Eric brought up in the chat, lots of schools and universities use Google Sheets.
Yep. I was going to just say that. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chuck, I think you would have had a very viable argument in 1990 or 1995, but
or 2000.
About 2010.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It just, and Eric's saying there may be a difference in the complexity of the spreadsheets, and that's, I guess, where I get to it.
Right.
That because it's Google. So with all due respect to Google, there's a serious lack of expectation of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that would, as a business person, if I found out that certain functions were being run on Google spreadsheets, if I were a shareholder in a bank, I'd probably have a stroke.
But Chuck, this raises a very.
I'd be really unhappy if they were using Excel for critical bank functions too.
Well, that's another story, Jim.
But this raises a very important question about antitrust, and that is, how do you define a monopoly? And in this DOJ action, they tried to define it in a very narrow way, that is unique to just identify Apple. It's almost like saying Apple has a monopoly on Apple products. It's sort of like, does McDonald's have a monopoly on hamburgers? No, but McDonald's has a monopoly on hamburgers sold through its stores.
Quarter-pounders of cheese.
Yeah, they got there's their monopoly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, and these things again about spreadsheets. I think for a lot of people, Google Sheets it's free. It's free. That's why it has such a big user base. And for a lot of people, they don't do more than put in a couple of numbers. They don't need all the capability.
It also makes it really easy to share.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether you want to share or not.
Well,
in a lot of cases, people do want to share.
And live collaboration is a big benefit of it.
Yeah, I mean, we ran GeekBeat Live completely through Google Sheets, right down to timing.
I've got to give you a 3-minute warning before I have to go.
No, sorry, Mark, you got to stick around.
Hey, Webb, I read the filing for you, so
we're a monopoly. You cannot leave.
You get that pass. No, Ben. Look, taking nothing away from GeekBeat or any of the folks that are using it. It's just there are certain levels of financial responsibility and corporate responsibility that I would certainly think that, and please, somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong, but I just cannot imagine that Google Sheets would meet those requirements.
They don't.
I haven't. Yeah, so
not even with a business account.
I don't know, Marty. I don't. That's it. I have not done the research on that, but still, there's the business account. At least you're paying.
Maybe
for
you shouldn't use Dropbox, and maybe you shouldn't, use iCloud Drive, and people do all kinds of things. Yeah, people do all kinds of things they shouldn't. A and B. I think, Chuck, you're looking at this through an insurance executive eyes of a lot of things aren't critical, and like in Ben's case, who cares if somebody is able to see their schedules for whatever that thing is. They're getting a big benefit out of it, and there's not any big benefit to somebody stealing it. So there's an awful lot of applications that aren't critical. And to my point, remember there was the thing during the pandemic that somebody in England was using Excel, and they Excel doesn't have good controls, and it lost a whole bunch of data, health data, because they were using Excel, and there was a bunch of people that were all horrified. What this should have been in a proper database with and not in Excel. So there's all kinds of bad practices.
Yeah, Mark had to go, and so we didn't get to say goodbye to him. But you can find him on X and on LinkedIn as Mark Fuccio. And so, Mark, sorry you had to go, but I get it. Thanks so much. We just ran out of road.
I'll touch real quick again on Google with Sheets, but I have a Google Workspace account and I've been using it for years, and I feel safe and secure using it. And it all depends on what the business is what they use it. I mean, education obviously is very, very active using the Google Workspace area. So I can see it being secure, but like I said, Chuck, you and I and Webb too, we're in an industry that you really can't be doing those kinds of things in a cloud-based environment that's not, you can't secure it. Microsoft does a much better job in the corporate world in most cases, the way it comes to security, that companies look at that instead of something like Google Workspace.
Chuck, shall I ask you if anybody should use Gmail?
There goes that too.
No, we've talked about that. I mean, if you're using Gmail, you are the product.
Yeah,
and yet
same thing with
some
Sheets.
of us. Well, I don't know, Marty. I think this was yours in our private chat that Google Sheets offers enterprise-grade security for businesses, including data encryption, right. Uses AES 256 bit encryption to protect data in transit and at rest. Access controls allows user to manage permissions at the individual, group, or domain level. Expiration dates allows users to set expiration dates for their content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, Marty, where did this come from? I assume you pulled this off of an agreement somewhere.
Yeah, I went in to ask the question about Google's access to data business accounts and the security, and this was what was generated in terms of a response.
Okay,
and that meets the NIST standards for most corporations.
Okay, so I stand corrected. I had no idea.
We're not debating you here, but I mean, I think
I should be debated. I should be debated because this is very. The only thing that's for paid accounts, and so
right, you pay for it. You're getting.
And you're comparing it with Excel, which is paid.
Right, and I was not up to this point, Jim, and so tit for tat. That's fine. If they're actually delivering on that, and have no reason to believe they're not at that level, then that's great.
My only business comment on this is that we evaluated it, went with 365 instead. So
it's just standard in our industry, really.
Yeah,
but I think the point is that 365 is not a monopoly.
No,
at least not now. There was something to evaluate, and probably 20 years ago there wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have evaluated anything. It would have just been, no one got fired for using Microsoft.
Yeah.
No, it's all there's a lot of good controls in place.
I've honestly lost track of this because I'm not sure who said it, but the concern over other folks backing on this, it's already happening. And I'm throwing a link in the chat from Apple World today, citing 3 different class action suits that seem to be piggybacking on the DOJ's action. So this is
welcome
going to be
to the
around for a
United
while.
States.
Yeah. Ambulance chasers.
This one's got to be driving you nuts, Chuck.
Well, all I have to say, because I haven't reviewed all of those in detail, because frankly, at some point it just, it's not going to affect me. But I do start to wonder about the firms who are consistently the ones that are generating these class action suits, as opposed, as money making.
Oh, absolutely.
Vehicles. Notice I've avoided another word, but as money making vehicles. So how legitimate are they, and how many times can they go back to the cow before it runs dry?
Right.
So, any other thoughts on this before we move on? I know we took a long time to do this, but I feel like it's probably one of the hot stories, and we really did need to address it. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.